Back here on HQ Spotlight, talking about the NFC East now. You know, the NFC East has not had a repeat champion since 2004. Of course, the Eagles ran the table. Prior to that, I believe they won it 4 straight times. Looking like history's going to repeat itself, unfortunately, in 2025. The Eagles with the only winning record in this division, followed by the Cowboys at 3-5-1. The Commanders got some good news with Jaden Daniels. He's not going to require surgery on that dislocated elbow. And then the Giants. Oh, the Giants. We thought they had a chance, and then the injuries. It has been a tough 2025. So let's talk surprises and disappointments with our guys, Ryan Wilson and John Breech. Jacqueline mentioned it earlier. We're going to do a little role reversal here. So, Ryan, I hope you enjoyed being Mr. Positivity. We need you to lean into your Pete Prisco a little bit in this segment. And John Breech, give us a little bit of that positivity. Let's start at the top with the Eagles, guys. Not a ton of surprises, really. I think there was a lot of conversation about them with the chance to be Super Bowl champions again. But when you look at this team, Breech, what has surprised you about the Philadelphia Eagles?
Haley, I am surprised that this team is in first place. And now hear me out before Eagles fans start sending me angry emails. But when you look at what they have done statistically this year, they have been outgained in 7 of their 8 games. Saquon Barkley has disappeared. He's barely on track to crack 1,000 yards. The team is averaging less than 200 passing yards per game. They're one of the 5 worst teams at converting on third down. So it's been absolutely atrocious. I do not know how they are in first place. But the positive thing here is that despite all of that, and as badly as things have gone for the offense, is that they are in first place. So it was one of those things where a lot of things did go wrong, but it's still working out just fine because they are 6-2. Sure, there's a little bit of infighting and bickering, but that happens every year with the Eagles. They always figure things out. And then you start to ask, well, why and how are they winning games if their offense is struggling so much? And it's one, because they don't turn the ball over. They only have 3 turnovers on the year, which is the fewest in the NFL. And then they're defensively, they have one of the best red zone defenses in the NFL, a top 3 in the league. And if you're not giving up touchdowns, your offense is allowed to struggle. So the Eagles being in first place, a little bit of surprise, but it does feel like they're going to repeat as champs.
Haley, Breech is literally, no joke here, I'm using literally correctly here, one of the most positive people I know. So for him to waver a little bit and hardly be upbeat about the Eagles is a surprise for me. I will take the other side of the argument, which basically is going to be repeating what Breech just said, weirdly enough. But Saquon Barkley specifically with that run game has been a huge concern. Not entirely his fault. The offensive line has not looked anything like it looked last year. Mekhi Becton has left to go to the Chargers. There have been some injuries along the interior offensive line. And Saquon Barkley finally got his first 100-yard game, went for 150 before the bye against the Giants. Prior to that, the highest he had gotten was 88. A year ago at this time, he had already done plus 100 at least 3 times, maybe even 4. And one of those games, sorry, Jacqueline, was the jump over backwards against the Jaguars game where he went absolutely ballistic. So can they get the run game going? I would imagine so. But I think Breech's larger point is an important one, that it is kind of crazy that this team is in first place. Given how mediocre they've been, I suspect they'll figure it out. They'll get Saquon going. And then, you know, as you mentioned, Haley, there's a really good chance they're going to win this division again.
Well, and I guess the surprise, as the Cowboys fan in this group, there is no surprise for me in terms of who should be winning this division, because when you've seen the way that the Giants, the Cowboys, and the Commanders have all played this year, the Eagles have, God, it pains me to say this, the Eagles have far been the best team in that division. Let's talk about the Cowboys, though, guys. I'm going to go out on a limb here, Breech, and say that your biggest surprise, and maybe Ryan's biggest disappointment, is that Cowboys defense.
Well, my biggest surprise, I know what Ryan's disappointment is going to be. I don't want to steal his thunder. So I'm going to go with Javonte Williams as my biggest surprise. When the Cowboys said goodbye to Rico Dowdle during the offseason, that was a surprise because it was like, well, who are you planning to have at running back? And it was Javonte Williams. You look at what Javonte Williams has done for the past 2 years in Denver. He averaged 3.6 yards per carry, 3.7 yards per carry. So it was like, why are you bringing in this guy to be your heavy-hitting running back who is not even averaging 4.0 yards per carry? And then what did Javonte Williams do? He came out and he has played very well this year. He's been one of the few bright spots, one of the unexpected stars of the offense. He's averaging 5.2 yards per carry, which kind of came out of nowhere. And the fact that he's successful and the fact that the Cowboys have been able to run the ball is very helpful, because that means the offense can stay on the field, they can chew up the clock, which means the defense isn't on the field, which is always big news for the Cowboys because their defense is so bad.
Yeah, now you get it, Breech. This is how you do it. You applaud the great things that are happening, and that offense is certainly great. And Haley, yeah, not a hard one to predict here. The defense has been, if not historically bad, close to it. Apparently, something like that can happen if you trade Micah Parsons and don't have a real backup plan. The good news is, look, man, they traded for Quinnen Williams. I love that. I love Kenny Clark as part of the Micah trade. You talked about it, Haley. DeMarvion Overshown's back now, or close to being back, and he is so good in the middle of that defense when he's healthy, but he's just struggled to stay healthy. They traded for Breech's guy, Logan Wilson. We'll see if he can add anything. But when you look across the board, they're struggling to prevent explosive plays. They can't get consistent pressure. They don't stop teams on critical downs, and they're terrible in the red zone. Other than that, amazing on defense. So Matt Eberflus has to figure that out. And I have to mention the fact that they lost Marshawn Nealon as well. And Haley, you and I were in Indianapolis 2 years ago at the Combine. Mm-hmm. We talked to him on the podcast. Just a great young man. And that certainly hurts that team on a lot of levels outside of football. But the other thing is someone with 2 teenage boys, and Breech has 2 young kids, just checking on your people, make sure they're okay, because you never know.
Thank you for that, Ryan. We're actually going to chat with Amy Trask later in the show about that, so appreciate it. It has definitely been a tough week for a lot of those players. I talked to DeMarvion Overshown yesterday just about everything. He says that he's in good spirits, so hopefully we see him after the bye week. Let's move on and talk about the Commanders, guys. This, to me, is the biggest surprise in this division. Everyone thought that Jaden Daniels was going to continue to cook, and yet here we are. Breech, I know that they've had some injuries this year. Jaden Daniels obviously in that mix, but what has been the biggest surprise for you this year in Washington?
Wilson's disappointment must be rubbing off on me, because my biggest surprise is how bad the defense has been. When you look at what they did last season, they were able to make that run to the NFC title game because Jaden Daniels was carrying them. The defense struggled to stop the run. They were pretty good at stopping the pass, but you figured, hey, Dan Quinn's a former defensive coordinator. He's a defensive-minded coach. He will fix things, and they will improve, and they will be a Super Bowl contender this year. Well, none of that happened. This team has given up the 4th most passing yards. They're giving up the 5th most total yards. They can't stop anyone. And one huge problem for the Commanders' defense has been a very basic one. They can't tackle. They have the 2nd most missed tackles in the NFL. Wilson, you know, is the first? The Cincinnati Bengals. So you look at those 2 teams, Bengals and Commanders, can't tackle anyone. Well, both their defenses are struggling. So even if Jaden Daniels has been able to stay healthy, I'm not sure this team is at the top of the NFC East race or in the playoff conversation just because of how the defense has been, and it has been so bad that it has left me surprised.
Yeah, Haley, Breech did not understand the assignment. I'm disappointed in the defense. Let's see here. Has been a no-show so far. So basically what Breech said, the reason they can't tackle anyone is because guys are running so wide open they don't have a chance to get to them. The other thing I would just mention quickly is that Emmanuel Forbes, their former first-round pick before Adam Peters and Dan Quinn arrived, turning things around for the Rams. So you moved on from a first-round pick at cornerback. I understand why in the moment, but sometimes the guys you have are worth trying to coach up and see what you get out of them, especially when this unit stinks as much as it does right now.
I just think that Breech wants to be the bad guy so bad. Like, he's just got a little main character energy right now on this segment. Breech, I'll give you first word and final word here when it comes to the Giants. What has surprised you or disappointed you or both about the G-Men in 25?
Wilson, I wore the black shirt. I thought it made it obvious I was going negative no matter what. But you know what? With the New York Giants, not a lot of hope in the Big Apple, so I am going to go positive here. My biggest surprise is Jackson Dart, the obvious one. When you see him play right now, you start to think, why didn't they just play him in week 1? You didn't need to throw Russell Wilson out there to be a sacrificial lamb for a couple weeks. If he had started the season, maybe they have a couple more wins. And you look at him, yes, he's 2-4 as a starter, but he is not getting any help from a defense that's given up 33 points or more in 3 straight games. But you look at what Dart has done. He's the first rookie in NFL history, looking at it right here, to have a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown in 4 straight games. When you have your quarterback producing points like that, you can compete and you can potentially beat anyone. And the other thing Jackson Dart is not doing, he is not turning the ball over. You see that a lot with rookie quarterbacks. He struggled against the Saints a few weeks ago in that shocking loss, but 0 turnovers in the 4 games since then.
Yeah, way to go, Breech. I appreciate your efforts on that one. My issue, bigger picture, though, guys, is that Brian Daboll still hasn't gotten this offense where it's supposed to be. He was the quarterback whisperer, quotations mark, in Buffalo with Josh Allen. We saw glimpses of that year one with Daniel Jones in New York. And, look, it's clear that he has quite the affection for Jackson Dart this season, but it hasn't translated, whether injuries or otherwise. So if they don't improve and substantially improve, there could be changes, the coaching staff and front office, in which case Jackson Dart is now going to be set back another year with a new coach and new GM. So I was hoping for more from Brian Daboll, as was the owners in New York. We just haven't quite seen it yet.
We will keep our eye out. There are a lot of moving parts when it comes to those head coaches as the season goes on. Breech, Wilson, appreciate the time, as always. They like playing villain, is kind of the vibe that I got from these two
I'm here
segments.
for it.
I'm here for it, too. All the surprises and disappointments. Here is what the NFC East will look like this weekend. Of course, the Cowboys are on the bye this week. They will come back and play the Raiders on Monday Night Football. But before we get there, you got the Bears, who have been electric. Caleb Williams has really got this team cooking. They're a 4.5-point favorite against the Giants. The Commanders with a tough test as they welcome in the Lions. And a big one on Monday night. Eagles, Packers, only two teams in the NFL this season that have been favored in all of their matchups to this point. Obviously, the Packers get the nod in Week 10.